So the story, Boris Vian, I don't remember. And also the other literate man, which is Charles Bukowski. So there is something really funny. I once was doing a documentary about a homeless in Zurich that was about to kill himself by drinking whiskey, like overdoing it. He really killed himself in the end. So when there was a festivity in Zurich, throughout the year, I went from Germany, Cologne, with a camera, cheap ticket, to Zurich, and I videotaped him. I once told this story before, but it's just like, now that I tell you about, what was I telling you about? Yeah, well, Charles Bukowski. This man that in the end drank too much and now is dead. His movie is called Die Down, and it's Die Down 1 to 7. It's 7 parts. And it's also called in German Für die Toten, which means for the death. Because this is a kind of a saying people that drink say to each other because they know so many have died already. And he was saying that in the documentary while I was filming him. He spit on the floor and then said, "That's for the dead." And he was spitting out some whiskey instead of swallowing it. So Charles Bukowski seems to have drunk a lot. I don't know. But his writing, him being so laconic and direct about everything, I love him a lot. So I have read his stuff, the Postman stuff and everything. So he isn't one of those Beat Generation writers. He's all he's one of a kind. So, but he has a feel of, by the elite, Kerouac and all those, Ginsberg, were, by the elite, taken to write bullshit and to lead the young astray into a world where doing LSD and drugs in general was okay. And by that, of course, they wouldn't form couples and never have offspring and maybe also kill themselves in the end. They would just have a totally different life than their parents. So the advice from their parents also they wouldn't take. So that's a set agenda by the elite. And you can learn about this all over the internet when you Google the right terms. And especially at Miles Mattis' site, because he's like saying, these and that pictures don't match of these and that politicians, and there was these and that people from the elite that formed hip bands, but actually they were from the military, and their genealogy reaches back to the peerage, so they are linked to the real rich from the East India Company. So why would we trust them being sincere artists? They probably have an agenda, and actually the agenda now is pretty out there, because when you look at the papacy, all the esoteric symbols you find there, not the moon and the sun by themselves, just those, but all the astrology signs. There is like the Vatican that has the phoenixes and all of that, but then that's the cable car. There is also the Latestrano, the lateral. What is this thing called where the Pope actually resides? Not doing his ministry and all, but resides. Lateran. When you go there, the doors that look like, from some anthroposophic school they might come from. They look so not Christian. They have all these pagan symbols on them. So esoterics and spiritualism was a agenda by the elite, just as much as the Beat generation in writing and music, like, you know, Bob Dylan, everything. So they were always trying to, when they saw, yeah, we want to make war, so we're gonna have an opposition. Okay, let's create the opposition ourselves so we can steer them towards the direction we want them to go. If they form themselves, they are uncontrollable. So that's why they do it. And they do it by the people of their own. They don't go hiring you and me. They want to keep it a secret, you know. It's the hidden hand. Like when you see those pictures with people, Napoleon and even the Egypt kings have one hand hiding within their clothes. So that's what they do. So now you have me walking on a straight flat surface, so you get a different picture of me, don't you? So I wanted to add, it's not the Egyptians being the elite's origin. It was the Phoenicians traveling all over the world. So by the end, they built all their pyramid structures, obelisks all around the world. And the biggest one now on Earth, transported from Egypt, is in Rome. How funny is this? Yeah. It also might be Washington, I'm not sure. Hidden in plain sight by Scott Onstott. It's really interesting because he's like looking at the elite architecture and he's himself into that topics. So he measures out the buildings, the streets, and you see that from early on they have had their symbols. Like they were always choosing something that would determine a hiding, so a all that would kind of haunt at night, you in the unseen. You know, I told you that one before. So that's what they do. They talk to each other, not to us. Ah, cool it is here. The cold air here is wonderful. I would love to live right in a bend of such a cold mountain river. Ah. So they have their symbols and they don't talk to us. With a pine cone, they're saying the evergreen tree. They take a fantasy animal, have it in the Assyrian age, have it hold a pine cone towards a kind of symbolic tree. It later became the tree known as Kabbalah. So in Kabbalah, so the meaning towards them, it was, we are gonna keep our lineage alive. It's the tree, the family tree, that has to be green, ever living, like the pine cone, the Christmas trees that are always green. So that Assyrian you know, engravings with these animals that look like an upright crocodile, I don't know. Always also has a bucket with him, so he sprinkles something like, you know, sperms, water onto that tree, so he's like, you know, procreating. So later on it became the fleur de lis, or in the buildings it became the pine cone on these sort of, you know, there would be a pine cone, there would be one. So in the, actually Vatican City has a huge pine cone, and then also the Ouroboros, a snake biting its tail, so ever resurfacing, ever reinventing. So that's why in all the big religion you have someone dying and then coming back to life miraculously. So they are like saying, we leave our cities, wherever it is, the Phoenicians did do so, and then we go to another place and we erect another Tower of Babylon, like another city wall. We do grant security and collect taxes at another place, and by that always making their own structure bigger. They also went abroad, and people they met, they weren't killing them. They were trading their red cloth, you know, Rothschild, their red dyed cloth. So that's the Phoenicians. Phoenician, you know. These, as far as we can go back, seem to be the origin of the elite nowadays. So, you know, the color red or the symbol language, and it was the trade that made it. So nowadays we have this sort of maritime law, and by our passports and ID cards we are bound to their system. Our birth certificate, when it's signed, then you're sold. It's nothing esoteric. It's just, you know, a state can deal with the birth certificates they have. If they have a lot, then they can say, well, we will have a lot of income later on, or in general. So they can trade millions of money with other countries by that. So immigration in Germany is a reason. That's the reason they did that, because they were getting poorer and poorer over there, not being able to pay all their bills, as every country has the same problem, but that's how they deal with it. And also to destroy the sort of Christian faith. Christian faith will be replaced by Islamic. Oh, another river. So bye bye. I'm not lying. I'm walking, and beside the road I found 20 Swiss francs. So now I gotta play the Euro Millions for me and my boo-boo. The boo-boo at home, also known as Mau Mau and Maumpeli and Mountsley. Stinkily at times, because now he's ill, he's a bit stinky out of his mouth. That's what stomatitis is about. Yeah, if I win, I will build animal shelters, like buy huge areas of land and create animal shelters, and then also travel. Like I will go to China and Tibet, Nepal, India, all those countries, and I will just ask the people in the countryside, do you want to have a job and care for the animals? You know, people will have money then, and all the animals that are in need can be brought to those people, and they would just have to take care of them. So I got one woman I would ask for the administrative works, and I got another woman I would ask to also help